When I first downloaded this NBA runner, I'll be honest, I thought it was just that arcade thing of pressing to jump at the right time. Good looking, addictive, but simple. But after a good few hours running through these courts, I discovered that the game hides some mechanics that make all the difference between getting a decent score and truly dominating the leaderboard. And look, I'm not talking about the basic stuff that anyone notices in the first 5 minutes. Today, I want to share with you 10 advanced tips that took me a while to figure out. If you want to stop hitting the wall and start putting up scores that are actually worth it, stick with me. I'm Matthew, and let's get into it. If there is one thing that caught me by surprise, it is how much this game rewards quick thinking in midair. We are talking about 3-on, 3 above-the-rim arcade basketball with fluid animations and that high-flying vibe that reminds you of street classics. And in this frantic game environment, simply going for a dunk every time is not enough. You need to read the defense before coming down. Here is the scenario. You accelerated, went up for a dunk, and then saw that giant defender, like an Embiid or Wembanyama, jumping right with you to block it. Instead of accepting your fate, you press the shoot or layup button again mid-jump. This activates the mid-air adjustment and transforms your dunk into a completely different acrobatic layup. It is almost as if you were editing the play in real time, and the feeling of watching the defender miss the block because of it is absurdly satisfying. What makes this mechanic so special here is that the game actually allows this transition from dunk to layup in the air without locking up, taking full advantage of the fluid animations the studio implemented. By switching from a dunk to a layup, you alter the timing of the play and the angle of descent, leaving the opponent, who had already committed to the block, literally jumping at air. Other titles in the genre already explore this, but in NBA The Run it fits perfectly because the pace is so fast and vertical that every second in the air matters. Against tall big men, this tip is practically essential. They live for the moment you go up to dunk, but when you start canceling midair and finishing in different ways, they begin to hesitate. And hesitation on defense is a guaranteed bucket for you. So the next time you are running the knockout tournament on the street courts, do not be afraid to adjust midair, because those who master midair adjustments not only avoid blocks, but completely break the timing of the opposing defense. This tip is pure gold and shows that you already understand the soul of the game. The knockout mode in NBA The Run is a 4-round elimination tournament where each match can come with a different rule out of nowhere. With 12 random rule sets that alter everything from scoring to victory conditions, building a one-dimensional team is practically asking to be caught off guard. The entire structure of the game was designed to reward those who can think fast and adjust on the fly, not those who mechanically repeat the same formula. The problem with building a trio made up entirely of three-point specialists like Stephen Curry is that you become a hostage to the draw. If the rule set for the round happens to be Dunk Fest, where dunks are worth 3 points and the game rewards physical athleticism, your team of shooters will struggle to compete. You might have the best shooter in the game, but if the rules of that specific match eliminate his space or change the scoring math, that advantage disappears. It is like bringing a knife to a fist fight. Too much technique, but in the wrong context. The high-level solution is precisely that mix you mentioned. When assembling your roster, think of trios that cover different spectrums: a space creator and shooter, a physical athlete who dominates the paint and dunks, and a versatile player who can do a bit of everything. With 32 NBA stars available at launch, plus streetball legends, the combinations are massive. A team that features, for example, an elite shooter, an explosive dunker, and a defender/playmaker can handle any rule set the game throws at them without losing its identity. Ultimately, this drafting strategy reflects the right mindset to win in NBA The Run. It is not about having the 3 best individual players, but rather about having the 3 right players for any scenario. Adapting the team as the rules change, reinforcing shooting for a triple threat, or athleticism for a dunk fest is what separates those who advance in the bracket from those who go home early. Those who master this dynamic reading are already playing chess, while most have not even realized the game exists. This tip about focusing on the torso is exactly the kind of thing that separates those who truly understand the DNA of NBA The Run from those who come in trying to play it like a simulation. Since the game is a fast-paced 3-on-3 street arcade with ankle-breaking handles and that exaggerated street ball vibe, traditional sim defense simply does not work. The movements are so fast and full of style that if you keep looking at the ball or the offensive player's arms, you will get crossed up on the very first play. The torso is the only part of the body that does not lie. The logic behind this is pure physics applied to gameplay. A player's center of mass is in the torso, and that is what determines where the body will actually move. In NBA The Run, the animators did an excellent job with visual fakes to distract you. The ball might go one way, the arm might make a wide gesture, but if the torso did not follow, it is all a bluff. In a game where the arcade-style rewards creativity and dribble moves are designed to break the defender's perception, keeping your eyes on the torso is like having a radar against illusions. You stop reacting to the noise and start reading the intent. In practice, this completely changes how you guard the perimeter. When the offensive player starts spamming crossovers and those rapid glitch-like dribbles, the temptation is to follow every bounce of the ball, and that is exactly when you fall into their body control. If you lock your stick or your positioning onto the line of the torso, you will realize that many of the movements that seemed broken actually have a pattern. The center of mass has to commit for real drive, and the rest is just window dressing. This visual discipline is what allows you to stay in front of the ball handler without wasting stamina for nothing. Ultimately, this tip transforms defense from a frustration into a mental game. NBA The Run celebrates individuality and offensive highlights, but nothing is more satisfying than shutting down a guy who thinks he is going to humiliate you with fakes simply because you do not buy into his visual narrative. Keeping an eye on the torso is defensive humility. You accept that you cannot react to everything, so you choose to react only to what matters. And when you start doing this automatically, the whole game slows down in your head, even if it remains frantic on the screen. Man, if there is one thing in NBA The Run that really changed the way I approach online matches, it was experiencing firsthand how different their rollback netcode is. We have dealt with so much frustration regarding input delay in basketball games that when you feel the immediate response here, it feels almost like magic. I am not exaggerating. The ball actually leaves your hands the exact moment you press the button, and that opens up space for plays that would be nothing but a dream in other titles. The tip I want to pass on is simple, but it completely changes the pace. Stop holding onto the ball like the game owes you something. Abuse short passes and first touch commands. Spin with the player and immediately throw an elevated lob. This combination of a spin followed by a high pass creates an instant alley-oop that the opposing defense simply does not expect. It works because the game registers your intent before your opponent's eyes can even keep up. What makes this special is that the rollback here is the real deal. It is not just a marketing promise. Instant passes, quick lobs, and tight combos truly shine online because the technology corrects latency without canceling out your execution. In other games, attempting a sequence this fast was asking for the ball to fly into the stands or for your player to freeze mid-animation. Here, the response is so solid that you can rely on muscle memory without hesitating out of fear of lag. I started using this just yesterday, and the difference was night and day. The defense gets lost because you create unpredictable plays that rely on tight timing, but that the game delivers perfectly. So test it out, drop that habit of waiting for the game to develop, and start spinning and throwing the ball up in the exact same breath. You will see that the offense gains a speed that breaks any defensive scheme relying on normal reaction times. You know that moment when the ball hits the rim and everyone stands paralyzed watching it? Well, most people run straight for it, thinking speed solves everything. The secret is that the game rewards you for anticipation, not haste. When you see the trajectory of the ball changing, whether from a defensive tip or a shot that clanks off the iron, your finger needs to be on the dive button before the ball even hits the floor. I tested this extensively in ranked matches. The player who initiates the dive wins the collision 9 times out of 10. It is not just a pretty animation, it is pure hitbox priority. The guy who tries to pick it up on the run enters a slower pickup animation, while your dive has invulnerability frames at the start. It is the same logic as old school street games, NBA Street, NBA 2K and Park modes, but here it is more punishing for those who arrive late. The trick is to read the rim bounce. Three-point shots usually bounce long toward the weak side. Mid-range shots drop dead closer to the free throw line. If you are already positioned on the correct side before the ball hits the rim, the dive becomes automatic. Do not think, I am going to dive. Think the ball is going to land right there. That fraction of a second of anticipation is what separates those who gain possession from those who take an elbow on the rebound. A practical tip: spend 5 minutes in free mode doing nothing but diving for loose balls. Set the controller to vibrate at the exact moment of the command and condition the muscle. Then take it into real games and you will see. Physical defense in NBA The Run stops being run and hope and becomes surgical timing. That is how you become your opponent's nightmare in the paint. To be honest, it took me a long time to understand that NBA The Run basically hides two different games inside the same package. At first, I thought the difference between solo and squads was just having company or not, but the artificial intelligence changes so much from one to the other that it feels like you switched genres without warning. It was only when I stopped forcing the same tactics that I finally saw how to utilize each mode the right way. In knockout solos, you are on your own managing all three athletes, and that is the trap. The tendency is to think that because you control everyone, the team will run like clockwork. It does not work that way. It is pure chaos, and what saves you is constant rotation between players. You need to switch all the time to cover gaps in the defense, close passing lanes, and prevent the opposing AI from finding open space. If you stick to one player thinking he will solve everything, you will get picked apart by the AI itself, because it will punish every microsecond of inattention on the other side of the court. Now, when you enter squads, the situation reverses completely. Here you control just one guy, and the classic mistake is trying to do everything yourself just like in solo. The advanced secret is precisely learning to play without the ball. You open up space with smart off-ball movement and rely on the positioning of your teammates, whether they are AI or real people. The flow changes drastically because you are no longer everyone's maestro. You are a piece of a team that needs to function on its own. The magic happens when you understand that your role is to create opportunities by moving, not by forcing the play with every touch. The tip that truly elevates your level is to treat these modes as separate experiences. In solo, your mind has to move fast, managing three bodies at the same time. In squads, it has to relax and read the positioning of others. When you stop bringing the chaotic logic of solo into squads, or vice versa, that is when the game finally clicks and you start to dominate both movement and court space. In the beginning, it is very tempting to sprint all the time and string together dribble combos nonstop, but the game punishes this in a very clear way. When your stamina drains, it is not just a visual detail. Your shot literally becomes harder to hit, and that perfect green timing window practically vanishes. I started to notice this when my perfect shots simply stopped dropping after a few more intense plays. It was not a timing error, it was accumulated fatigue. That is where the shift in mindset comes in. Instead of playing at full speed all the time, you need to pace yourself. Holding the ball, performing a more stationary fake, reading the defender, this saves energy and also makes the opponent uncomfortable. The most interesting part is how the game rewards those who know how to explode at the right moment. You do not need to beat your man off the dribble every single second. You just need to create that microspace. A well-executed fake, a hesitation, and then you use the sprint to drive or pull up for the shot. When you reach that finish with a fuller stamina bar, the difference in control and consistency is massive. Ultimately, playing well on offense here is almost a rhythm, not just mechanical skill. It is knowing when to slow down in order to accelerate later with intent. When you catch this flow, the game changes completely. You stop forcing plays and start dictating the tempo of the match, like a true playmaker on the court. There is a detail that a lot of people completely ignore, but for me, it has become one of the most consistent weapons in multiplayer, the inbound play. Most treat this moment just as getting back into the game, but you can transform this into a practically guaranteed play if you know how to manipulate positioning. The secret here is to use crossing movements right on the release. Instead of having each player run to their standard corner, do this. Have the forward fake a drive into the paint, and halfway through, cut outward. At the same time, the center does the opposite, leaving the perimeter and heading inside. This crossover completely messes up the read of whoever is guarding, especially when they're human players trying to react on the fly. And that is where this tip truly shines in 3-on-3. Since there are fewer people on the court, any reading error turns into immediate open space. When the defenders get confused in this crossover, almost always someone will hesitate for half a second, and that is exactly the time you need to find a clean three-point shot. It is not about speed, it is about misleading the expectations of the defending side. After I started using this, I stopped viewing inbounds as neutral situations. It basically became a designed play, almost automatic, to generate an open shot. And the best part, since many people still do not pay attention to this, it works repeatedly even in more competitive matches. If you want a consistent way to score without relying on convoluted plays, this right here is gold. One thing that changed my way of defending is understanding that the game embraces physicality without fear. This is not that rigid basketball full of fouls for any little bump. If you come from more traditional simulators, you actually need to unlearn a bit, because contact is part of the strategy. And it is not just allowed, it is extremely effective when used correctly. The most common mistake is waiting for the offensive player to go up before contesting the shot. Except in this game, if the guy has already entered the jump animation, you are already late. The ideal approach is to act before that. When you see the drive starting, get in the way and use your body. A well-placed bump or a direct collision completely breaks the rhythm of the offense and often cancels the play before it even turns into a finish. Playing with heavier defenders makes this even more evident. These players are not there just to protect the paint passively. They are tools of impact. If you position yourself well and deliver contact at the right timing, the offensive player loses balance, slows down, or is forced to reset the play. It is almost like playing a game of physical chess on the court, where positioning is worth just as much as reflexes. Once you internalize this, defense stops being reactive and becomes oppressive. You do not wait for the opponent's mistake. You create the mistake through contact. And that is where the game shines, because it transforms every possession into a real battle for space and strength, right in the spirit of street ball. If there is one decision that seems aesthetic at first, but in practice changes your performance in NBA The Run, it is how you spend your cred. Many people enter the shop thinking only about style, but some choices there directly impact what happens inside the court. It even took me a while to realize that certain animations are not just good looking, they are more efficient. The tip here is very straightforward. Prioritize advanced dribble packages and faster dunk animations. The default animations, especially in the beginning, feature longer and more predictable movements. This might even look cool visually, but in practice, it gives the defender enough time to react, close the space, and even send a block back without much effort. When you start using better animations, the difference is immediate. The dribbles become shorter, more direct, and above all, harder to read. As for dunks, some advanced variants protect the ball better in the air, significantly reducing the risk of being blocked. It is not just aesthetics, it is pure efficiency. You execute the play with less exposure and more control. After I started investing my cred with this focus, I felt the game flow much better during drives and finishes. Instead of relying solely on perfect timing, you start counting on animations that work in your favor. So before you go out buying anything just for the looks, think about the actual in-game impact, because here, choosing right makes a real difference.